Ballarat and Bendigo have performed really well. I've got a bit of a bias for Ballarat over Bendigo for a few smaller reasons. Ballarat is quite close to Melbourne. It's 64 minutes on a fast train from Ballarat station to Southern Cross, so we've got a few commuters as well. People from Melbourne have decided that, you know, maybe they can cash in and have that lifestyle and get more house for their money and enjoy raising their kids in an area with great schools, and they can still commute to work in the city. So Ballarat does have that edge over Bendigo because Bendigo's a little bit further and you tend to find people's commute tolerance is about an hour. But Ballarat also has some decentralised employment services. We've got the ATO and we've got emergency services up there, and we've got some private industry as well. So there is work there and it's a growing population.
Okay, and Bendigo, not quite as good, but it's got the same sort of fundamentals, does it?
It's got similar fundamentals and it too is growing. There's been quite a lot of house and land development in Bendigo, as there has been in Ballarat too, but they're not typically the areas that I'd go for. I like the inner city, tightly held areas where there's not so much land available. I go for a bit of scarcity where I can.
Okay, and there is scarcity to be found in those Bendigo and Ballarat?
Absolutely, yes. Yeah, so buying close to town, close to the major employers, places like hospitals, close to transport out to Melbourne, they're usually the criteria that I try and follow when I'm aiming for good capital growth in a regional area. Look, there are quite a few good suburbs in Ballarat. There are a few that I avoid as well. And train station doesn't necessarily equate to good suburb. And I've got some suburbs that I buy in that are quite a drive from the train station, but I think it's important to note that understanding what people value in those areas is key, because they don't value an easy walk in Ballarat. It's a cold place and the roads aren't congested and people have cars. So getting around town's easy, and they don't value being walking distance from the high street like we do in Melbourne. We'll pay a premium to be in a little village or close to the shops. In Ballarat, that's not really an issue. So I've had to be very familiar with the area to understand what tenants really do value. They value warmth, they value properties that won't require lots of maintenance calls. House sharing is very convenient for people that are on contract, so that as contracts change they can have someone else move into the house. Having somewhere safe to park your car off street, they're all of the things that you start to get a feel for. I tend to just focus on houses, and sometimes I'll find a property that's got subdivision potential. I don't necessarily guide my clients to start subdividing, but it's nice for them to have that opportunity down the track and to create a bit of value or sell the parcel off if that's what they choose to do. And as far as units go, there are quite a few new unit developments in Ballarat, and I try to maximise my land to asset ratio when I'm purchasing for an investor. So if we go for something new, you tend to find that a larger percentage of the purchase price is attributed to the building itself and less on the land, and that's about face in terms of what I look for when I'm going through a property. The good areas have traditionally, or historically over the longer term, had capital growth around the 6 to 7%. So that's obviously an ideal capital growth figure to go for, and in recent times we haven't been able to achieve that, but over time, over the longer term, that's the goal. And yields are around that 5.5 to 6.5. So at the lower end, when we're buying, if we can spend between 200 and 240, we'll probably break the 6% gross rental yield figure. And if we're buying around that 240 to 280, then it might be 5.8 or 5.7. So the yields are really attractive. Regional is generally a rental yield play. It would be very rare for me to pick a regional area for growth or for any other reason, because that's the key to regional. They typically offer higher rents, and not every regional area does, but most do. And if someone was saying, for example, I'd like a property that won't cost me any more than $100 a week, well, then we've got some options that are within an hour and a half's drive from Melbourne that will deliver that and do it really well. Look, I go for capital growth first, but first and foremost, we've got to look at affordability. So if I buy something that's got strong growth prospects and the client can't afford the cash flows on it, they'll ultimately sell it, and then that was a wasted opportunity. So if I can go for something that is at the very edge of what they're telling me they'd like to spend in terms of holding it, or at the edge of their affordability, or the edge of the amount they give me, then I'll look at all of the options that remain on the table and go for the highest capital growth option. So I still prioritise capital growth, but you will forego a bit of that strong capital growth when you're going for strong yields.
Okay.
So when I look at a regional area, I say that it's moderated growth. It's not that they won't get growth, they might not get the same growth as we get in Melbourne or Sydney.